So, do you want to jump into your first idea?
Yeah, okay, cool. So as I said, so my first idea that we're trying to figure out how we make work is this concept of everyone should be able to quickly and easily launch a fintech product, right? Whether that's an investing platform, banking platform, the tech side of this should not be what's keeping you up at night. It should, I mean, you're still gonna have the regulatory side, and I can't fix that right now. But I would love to solve this problem where you have to spend a ton of money hiring a tech team and then designing and building a product when in reality, most fintech applications are a really snazzy front end with a whole bunch of back-end integrations. Because if you think about it, if you think about a Wealth Simple, a Coho. What they are is you have an onboarding journey, right? And part of that onboarding journey is a KYC provider, which is, for those who don't know, is know your customer, right? So we're going to take a look at your ID, we're going to take a look at your selfie and a video and make sure that you are who you say you are and that you're actually human. This is a massive space, and there are companies that are just focused on this, right? And there are a number of different providers that are doing it and are doing it well. Then there are providers focused on money movement, ledgering systems, banking as a service model, investing, brokerages. There are a number of people that are doing these well, and any fintech that wants to start up here in Canada is probably not going to go after their banking license right away. Like Coho, even after years of being in market, is only now going through the banking process, and it costs a lot of money. So what you're going to do is you're going to partner with a number of these third-party providers that provide part of your solution. And even if you have something innovative, you're still going to need these different providers. And everyone kind of needs the same providers, even if their core differentiator is going to be different. It's going to be slightly different. So the concept that I'm looking to build, and this comes from our journey at Flamingo and our journey building product for other fintechs, is to start building a really modular drag and drop architecture for these third-party providers that are all backend, right? There's no reason you shouldn't be able to go and spin up a front end. You say, okay, I want an application that does full onboarding. It has a banking product that gives you a checking account, savings account, debit card. And these are the 3 or 4 different providers I want to do. Our team has already gone and integrated with most of them, either for ourselves or for one client or another. If we were to build out this modular front end that allows you to kind of like drag and drop and place things, then all of a sudden you don't have this barrier to entry of technology, right? And while none of this is, there are challenges, but the challenges are really around understanding the regulatory space. The technology piece just takes time. It takes time to do it, and it takes time to do it right, and to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. So you're basically saying to boil all of this down, it's kind of like Squarespace or Bubble maybe, but specifically for fintech products because they all kind of need the same infrastructure and, I guess these are probably coming in the forms of APIs. And that all comes together to create most fintech products.
That's right. Yeah, because they're just common pieces that all of them need, right? And that's mandated by the regulators, right? The regulators want to see that you are doing these different things and that you're doing them well, right? And so just to play the game, you need to have these pieces in place, and everyone needs them.
So why do you think this hasn't been done yet?
I think there are a couple of different reasons. So the people who are the third-party vendors themselves are focusing on their niche. And as any good startup, you should really focus on your niche. You can't do everything from the beginning. And because they're only focusing on their little piece, they're going to be doing it through backend APIs, right? They just want to play in their space, and they're going to do it well. I would say that is kind of the main driver behind it. Some people have tried. And some people do it well. VoPay is a really good example of someone who has built out the entire infrastructure and has started to have a kind of like build your own application, but it's all built on their stack, right? If you are tied into VoPay's technology and weren't going to be able to mix and match depending on your use case. And so getting back to answer your question, the reason I don't think anyone has done this before is just because it's such a wide area. And there's a lot to do here and people tend to want to focus on their niche.
So this is something that is this more for, an already venture-backed startup, or is this for somebody who's trying to build like, a prototype that
So I think it's for people who are initially want to start with a prototype MVP. There's no reason that this couldn't at some point be open source or allow teams to build upon it. The value of here is getting to market faster and at less cost. You have to invest less in an engineering team, and you'll be able to ignore some of the pitfalls like, hey, we integrated with this tool, it's not doing what we wanted to, we're going to have to redo the integration, right? Where you spend a lot of time, a lot of money going back and forth doing those types of things, which is kind of how it is. So I see they see this starting at the startup level. There's a high likelihood that unless we make this open source, you're going to have to rebuild it later on. Once you have that product market fit, you're going to want to start customizing it in a lot way. And if we have a drag and drop tool, and this is one of the things about no code, right, is that when you create something to be easily replicable, easily spun up, you're just not going to have the customization that you would if you were building it from scratch. And it's just the trade-off that you have. So that does bring up that interesting point, though, that is there a way that at some point when a company is ready to take it on themselves, they've already built this, that this isn't just okay, we have to scrap everything and start from zero. There's definitely a way to do that.
Okay. For the billing of this, how do you see that working?
My co-founder and I, we have been mulling this over actually for a while. This has been an idea that we've been bouncing back and forth. We really like it. And our goal actually is to build it with our clients, right? So if we take on a client, we provide them a discount that allows us to share the IP, and we build in a very modular way. Oh, we've built this for you. Now we can take that functionality. We're going to make it modular. We're going to make it drag and drop. And you're going to be able to use this, but we're also going to be able to take this and build this into our own solution that we spin out for new clients. And I think that's the easiest way. I've done the fundraising. I've raised whole bunches of money in multiple companies now. For my current company, Midas Labs, we are really trying to go the bootstrap route, right? Hey, we have this product agency where we are profitable, and we're using those profits to drive the development of different products internally.
That's probably exactly how I would start this thing as well. You got the exact same direction. My go-to-market would have been exactly like serve as a service and then build the initial foundations. So parts of the foundations might not be figured out yet, but just to service as that like builder provider to like an institution, almost like the easiest route in Canada in the local market is credit unions. There are just like so many of them under the same I think it was called Credit One network. They're all pretty much under the same network, but they might not have like the same app platform. I'm with a credit union right now, and then I see like my credit union's web app and software app is just like horrible. It's just ridiculous. And meanwhile, like the larger banks with their online banks, like for example, CIBC, their Simply app looks exactly like CIBC, but just like dressed with a different skin. Like all the layouts are pretty much the same. So like there's efficiencies for larger big banks to just like standardize the same platform that they already spend their money on. I would also like look at retail corporate enterprises, like the companies that are so big that they're providing their own financial services like Loblaws or Rogers or something like a Canadian Tire, they also do provide financial services now that like to them to just like try out a software provider. I would probably like seek for like an upcoming corporate enterprise partner, whatever that might be, and then just like go down that list, start subsidizing that foundational code to build this modular apps.
And it's interesting that you're looking at those markets, because those markets are very interesting. But for me, the most interesting markets for a thing like this is actually non-tech, non-banking companies that might be able to launch a banking product. So there are two really interesting sectors that I've heard of and I've had conversations about. The first is the trucking industry. So it sounds like, from what a conversation that I've had, is that the trucking industry is a lot of these truckers are unbanked, right? And so the trucking companies are trying to pay all of their truckers, and it's a hassle, right? And so what they want to do is they want to launch their own a banking service internally where they can create for all of their truckers a checking account, and they can push the funding regularly to their truckers, pay them on that platform, don't have to worry about checks, don't have to worry about like dispersing across the country to wherever these guys are, push it to their company account, and they have a card, or they can transfer it out, or they can do what have you. Really interesting plays where you only would get how unbanked this group is if you were deep in it.
There's also the whole side of it with restaurants as well, where a lot of restaurants can't figure out how to just disperse tips. And and then if once they've decided on how they've dispersed their tips, then it's like, oh, how do we get this into like the actual hands of our employees? Like, do we just give them cash and we're not reporting anything? Or, are we taking the time to do the paperwork and get it right? And I have seen like it basically goes onto a reloadable gift card, and then they give that to their staff, which I feel like is kind of leaning in the direction where, you could sort of see this same thing where there's a micro product that, just exists for employees of a company to, maybe not get all of their payroll, but maybe just a portion of it.
And that's why fintech is so interesting to me, right? It's that we have done money movement and banking so poorly in Canada and the United States that you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? If you can spin up an application, you can focus in on these niche industries to really make a meaningful difference in people's lives. That was what we were trying to do with Flamingo, right? We wanted you to be able to start investing, start building wealth with as little as $1. So people who are just starting on their wealth creation journey can get access to that, right? We didn't need to recreate the stock market to do that. We just needed to be able to spin up an application that allows you to transfer money out to us and start buying and selling on the stock market. I don't need to reinvent a checking account or a debit card to spin up a debit card and point it at a very niche use case and start adding value to people's lives.
Overall, like that's just such a winner idea, because if this were to exist and, it could kind of point the fintech industry towards the wave of just commodification of software, just allowing people to start their own things. It means that, the ones who really have the best distribution ability for, maybe they already have a large existing number of customers that they're very engaged with, or maybe they just have a very strong marketing team, whatever it is, like it just shifts initial focuses on starting things up on that, which I think is going to be really likely to push people towards success.
And like, this is why I love the story around liquid death. That's what I'm looking for here. They didn't recreate water, but they found this amazing use case and just killed it on the marketing in such a way that they truly differentiated themselves and grew a massive product.
Do you have any branding ideas on this one before we move on to the next idea?
You don't come to me for branding. I'm the execution guy. Like my co-founder has been forcing me to name things. That's how we came up with Midas Labs, and I'm just very uncomfortable doing it. I have a network of friends though that I would take this idea to, and they would get very, very excited on the branding side, and I would try and wash my hands of it.
Yeah, I find that's the easiest way to just pick a name for something. Either just go for the most obvious, generic, basic name, or like just ask a friend. And then if you feel good about it, yeah, that's just usually how I do it.
You could spend a lot of time thinking up a name, but the name you pick doesn't matter because as you grow and as you add value, that value becomes associated with the name, right? Nike, for example, didn't mean anything when they created the name Nike. They grew into that name and now it's iconic. Same with Google or most of them, right? Half of these words, like, yeah, there's a story behind it and they can justify it, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day because you're going to grow into that name and it's going to mean something because of the work that you're doing.